In October of 1941, Delia had taken her youngest, my father, to see his first movie, John Ford's How Green Was My Valley. In one of the final scenes of the film, Beth Morgan describes seeing her husband just moments before learning of his death. He came to me just now. Ivor was with him. He spoke to me and told me of the glory he had seen. I think now those words rang particularly true for my grandmother. Her thoughts of heaven and the likelihood of such a place must have been stirred as she listened to Beth Morgan speak of an afterlife in the warmth of the cinema that fall afternoon. As the movie ends, Hugh Morgan leaves his audience with these final words. "Men like my father cannot die," he says. "They are with me still." Whenever we discussed those departed, my grandmother would say, I suppose they're up in heaven with Minnie and Maggie, Nora and Nell, Bridgie and Jer, having a grand time for themselves." And then, like the refrain of an oft-heard poem, she would add, "If there is such a place." 12 days and 75 years after the sinking of the Titanic, on June 5, 1987, Delia left us. The day was beautiful, spectacular sunshine reflected in the greenness of so many young and vibrant leaves. The days were long. It was a Saturday. In just a few weeks was the summer solstice, and after that, the days would again begin to grow shorter. I had just received my college marks in the mail that morning, in the same home my grandparents purchased in 1941. About midday, we received a call. There had been an accident. My grandmother had fallen and broken her femur. When my father arrived at the hospital, she had just passed. 3 of her daughters were with her, Eileen, Sheila, and Mary. Although her memory had been gone for many years, all 3 spoke of the clarity Delia experienced in the moments before her death. Mary later told me that when my father learned his mother was gone, he sobbed. She said in all their years growing up, separated in age by just 4 years, she had never seen him cry. Delia was 96 years old. She had been blessed with many things, including many children and even more grandchildren. She had the bluest of eyes, and perhaps a gift of sight that few would ever truly understand. She had survived all of her siblings, including her younger brother Hugh, who passed away in 1975. Hugh was laid to rest in the Gurchin Cemetery, not far from the cottage where they were both born. Hugh's grave is a darkish-colored stone topped with a Celtic cross. Within the cross, at each end, are Celtic knots. The knots have no beginning and no end, and reflect the pre-Christian belief in the interconnectedness of this life with the next. The knots also each have 3 points, and simultaneously represent the Christian belief in the Holy Trinity. I thought of Delia joining Minnie and Maggie and John, her husband, and all her sisters and brothers. Perhaps when I am no longer, I too will meet with them. Perhaps I will again touch Pa's silky white hair, or hear my grandmother say hello again, as we all gather in heaven, if there is such a place. Like Hugh, I came to believe that those gone are with me still. Perhaps they come as an errant thought, the urge to do something we otherwise would not, or even a found postcard. Regardless, whether seen or unseen, whether in dreams or in the dim light of a room, whether a familiar smell or an unexplained noise, whether in heaven or some other place, those dear departed, I believe, remain with us. For perhaps we never truly die, but live on in a way we are yet to understand. In the end, I may not have discovered why Delia didn't board the Titanic, but I instead discovered our extended Toolan family. Recently, my cousin Tommy told me something our grandfather said on a drive to the beach. The Kennedys may have all the money in this country, but I have all the wealth. I have the best family a man could hope for. Tommy turned to me and said, "I know there are a lot of families out there, but you know, I think Pa was right. The O'Connors were something special." I thought of the story Justin had shared with me from his uncle Jim Murray. "It's not the O'Connors," I said to Tommy. "It's the Toolans." If the Toolans are a mighty people, our might comes not from ourselves, but from each other. Willa Cather once said, "At any rate, that is happiness, to be dissolved into something complete and great, and when it comes to one, it comes as easily as sleep." We are all part of something much greater than ourselves, and it is indeed a mighty thing. It was in Ireland that I rediscovered Delia. So often I would find myself visiting homes she had visited, going places she had gone. I came to realize that the journey I was following was less about leaving a place and more about returning to one. It was in Ireland that I again felt close to those gone, and where the barriers separating us seemed to thin, if just a bit. There were Loretto's photographs from the 50s, the found postcard at Mary's, the old sayings now mostly lost, the stories of those gone, the scratchy recordings of Coleman, the history of the Chasefield cottage, and strangely, even these lonely back roads of Sligo, where time itself seems to dissolve. At night, traveling along these old, narrow passages, your hold on the present loosens. Speeding past unending stone walls, generations old, not only is distance being traversed, but time itself. Further and further down the road is the past. Spinning by the windows are centuries of peat bogs, monuments, and megalithic tombs. At night, these roads are mysterious, spiritual, unending. They are where, as the poet Patrick Kavanagh writes, old ghosts meet. They are where you can easily become lost, and where you can again begin to find yourself. Along such travels, those gone suddenly seem closer, their voices mingling in the whirling of the wheels against the pavement. Like a bow against its strings, voices of the past crowd over you. Time bends, circles, and brings all together, until at last, it seems like old times again.
Seems like old times having you to walk with. Seems like old times having you to walk with, and it's still a thrill just to have my arms around you. Still the thrill that it was the day I found you. Seems like old times, dinner dates and flowers, old times, staying up all hours, making dreams come true, doing things we used to do. Seems like old times here with you. Thank you.